Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to listen to this episode. I get to have a conversation with Greg, who went from homeless to now he's making over $500,000 a year, and he bought a Porsche all cash. We talk about some gold nuggets that's helping him see some success like that. Now, it's not about the money and it's not about the material things in this world, but he's happy at what he's doing. He's surfing every day and he's getting to live a life of financial freedom. And that's what it's about. And in this episode, we get to chat about some gold nuggets that's helping him see those type of successes. Anyways, enjoy. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to episode 4 of the Gold Nugget podcast. I'm here with Greg and my co-host Austin Wilder. Say hi, Austin.
How's it going, guys?
Hey Greg, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Hey, so you want to tell the listeners a little bit, give us a quick little synopsis of yourself and where you're at now and where you came from, just kind of a quick summary?
Yeah, so I grew up in a upper middle class, had a good childhood kind of family, and my dad was a real estate developer actually, and life was turned upside down when I was 14 years old. My dad died of cancer, and so my mom did a really good job of keeping us, like financially afloat, so we didn't really feel too much of the shift there, but life changed a lot. I had a really hard time with that. I went down a nasty rabbit hole, got sucked into drugs, and so struggled with addiction for about 10 years, I would say, maybe a little over 10 years. Throughout that time is when I was introduced to real estate. It was actually right out of high school. I became an appraiser, and until the recession, and didn't stick, the recession hit, I lost my job and kind of bounced around a couple different jobs, but landed back in real estate and escrow. Then went into vacation rental management here in Maui. And the whole time, basically since I became an appraiser and was introduced to real estate is when I fell in love with it, and had always wanted to get into the investing aspect of it, but never had any education. I didn't know how to invest. I always thought that investing in real estate meant picking something off the MLS and waiting for it to go up in value and then selling it. So I didn't really know how to invest. So I'm glad I never pulled the trigger until, wasn't until probably 2016, probably 2015 to 16 is when I found, a lot of resources, podcasts and websites to really learn the fundamentals and how to actually invest, hedge my risk and make smart investments. And shortly after started buying with a couple lower end rentals, and really quickly, basically, I think within about the first year, I had gone from like just, wanting to buy one rental and bought my first rental. And I thought it'd be a year before I bought another one, but then I bought like two or three more that year. And then also started doing wholesales, and shortly after started doing flips as well. So it all just picked up real fast once I got started. But now I'm currently still buying rentals. That's kind of my focus. I really want to, acquire a big enough portfolio that I have excess income, and I'm real risk adverse. So I want to make sure I have more income than I need, so that if things go bad, things go wrong, not as planned, there's some cushion in there. So I'm buying rentals, actually closed on one today, and doing flips and wholesales as well. And not a whole lot of them. I'm more focused. I don't really have a team. It's just me and my partner. And so we don't look to do a lot of flips. We kind of both are at the mindset at where we prefer to just do maybe 3 or 4 a year with, $100,000 profit, $150,000 profit, then do, 8 to 10 a year with $70,000 profit, for example. Although, we do need to start getting some help, some VAs, and, we have some guys helping with acquisitions and things, but yeah, we like to keep it mellow and have our freedom, and nice and simple operation. So that's where we're at now. And that was a long answered your question.
No, that's fine. So basically where you're at now is we were chatting a little bit before I hit the record button, but you're surfing every day or at least every other day, what you said, correct?
Pretty much every day, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm a little jealous, but man, so the whole reasoning behind this podcast is you had mentioned going through some struggles to now you're just kind of cruising through a little bit easier, and so the purpose of this podcast is like the Gold Nugget podcast where we can drop gold nuggets that you can go home and implement today, and the focus of these gold nuggets is just bringing it back to the core, and the reason I really wanted to talk about that is because if someone had the perfect business plan and let's say you had all the knowledge to go and flip and buy rentals like Greg, but you didn't have the right mindset, then you wouldn't implement that business plan. Because Greg, let me ask you, you're kind of cruising through life a little bit easier than you were 10 years ago, but you still face some struggles and failures today though, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's just life, I think no matter where we are in life and how successful business is or anything, there's always going to be, um, struggles and failures. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But failure is just an opportunity to learn. So
Mm-hmm. And so
try
that
and try and keep that mindset.
that's the gold nugget I want to chat about. You said failure is an opportunity to learn. Let's hone in on that. There's people that fail and they get insecure and they think that the failure means they should quit. Well, what's your approach to that? Can you speak a little bit more on that and why it's so important to look at failure as a teacher instead of a stop sign?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'll just preface this with saying I feel like I have been really lucky in my real estate journey so far, in that I haven't had any major failures. I've definitely had challenges. Recently, I've had a lot of challenges with turnover, but with tenants, it's just, man, it's tough. But my rentals are still profitable, so I can't really consider those failures. I haven't really had a flip where we lost a lot of money or really any money so far. So I've been really lucky in that aspect. Again, I'm really risk adverse, so that's probably one of the reasons why that's my track record so far. Because I'm a big believer, and I'd much rather miss a good deal than do a bad deal. So I pass on the majority. We really don't. That's another reason we only do a handful of deals. We just rather not take the extra risk. But yeah, I mean, a couple of the ideas or examples that come to mind regarding like failure being an opportunity to learn for me, are, number one is I've had this track record of losing deals that I wanted to do, like that I was really going for, and losing them from due to taking too long. Um, like a good example is this one condo in this complex that I'm really familiar with, really wanted to do this flip at, had a friend that was friends with the owner, mutual, he made the introduction, and it was a textbook, she had left Maui because she was sick and was just going to let the bank take it. And she owed 100 grand or 200 grand on a $400,000 condo, and 450,000. And he had mentioned it to me. I said, yes, I'm interested. Yes, connect me, blah, blah, blah. And he sent an email intro. She never responded. Like 2 weeks later, he called me and brought it back up. And I was like, oh, yeah, totally. Like, let's go. Let's call her, And so I call her that day. He gives me her number and I call her up and she says, oh, yeah, actually, I just talked to a guy yesterday and he looks like he's going to buy it, but I'll keep you in mind. And so he ended up buying it. And that one actually just sold. He sold it for 450-ish, 440, I think it was. And so on a 200,000 purchase, $50,000 rehab, he made well over, or I don't know about well over, but he made 100 grand easy, probably a little more. And all that was due to me just not taking action quick enough. Right. So, and that's happened to me a few times where I learn a really hard lesson and I miss a really good deal. And I guess I haven't really learned the lesson well enough yet, but yeah, I'm really trying to implement that now. Is when I find a deal that I'm like, okay, there's really good potential here. Don't let it sit. Don't put it off till tomorrow, even if there's a million other things going on. I gotta, close in this one. Gotta whatever it is going on. I gotta take that action quickly because usually the sellers we're dealing with have a little bit of a time crunch going on. So yeah, that's a big lesson that I'm learning from failures.
I love it. So it sounds like failure is kind of speeding you up. Like the more you fail, the more you succeed. So from what I'm hearing is you kind of went through those little failures, and now you're telling me, oh, I need to act quicker. Like that was what you learned through it. Whereas some people might have lost the deal and been like, oh, I'm not a good investor, so they might go choose a different career path. Whereas with you, you're like, no, this is teaching me how to become a better investor. And
Yeah.
so and that's what I love it. I mean, that's just kind of my gold nugget on like when you fail, just I mean, that's think of it as a teacher. Like it's a lesson. It's not like don't take your inexperience and think that that's why you're not succeeding. It's just you haven't failed enough. Like go fail more. Now, I'm not saying to make uneducated like making uneducated investments. Greg, you said you're very risk adverse, so like you do your homework and then you go and do it. You learn 70% of it, or I mean, at least that's my mindset. I learn 70% of it, and then I go and learn the rest on the way. Because if I try to learn too much information, I get analysis paralysis, and I'm not making a decision. Um, but so I guess that I don't know. Did you have any other bullet points on the looking at failure as a teacher before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, I got one more example. It pops in my head was a deal I did. Um, so this was like I consider it to be like our biggest failure in terms of a flip. Now we still made about 50 grand on it, but this was a $900,000 purchase. Um, and it was only a 50 grand rehab. So it was a pretty minor rehab for that scale of a house. But yeah, for that big of a purchase, I mean, I'm having $1 million in and making 50 grand to me was a failure. And what I learned from that was so the reason that happened was due to COVID. So we closed on that house like the week of the shutdown last March of 2020. And we listed it in, I think, the end of April, something like that. So that was like the peak shutdown. And this was in like a second home part of Maui, Wailea, where local people don't typically buy their primary residence. So the visitors could not come to Maui. They couldn't see it, like that was a big challenge. But what I learned there is, so in spite of all that, we still made 50 grand. I thought we were going to make 150. If COVID hadn't happened, we probably would have made 150. But that was outside my control. What was inside my control was that my partnership at that time was with a partner where we were using hard money. So he was kind of like my backing, and he was putting the down payment and putting the hard money, taking the hard money on that risk. So my job was just finding the deal, managing the deal, and it did work really well, and we definitely had some really good deals. And I love my partner. This is nothing bad about him, but what I learned from that was that really what's more important to me is having a partner where we don't have those high costs. So that same deal, and I learned this once I started working with my current partner now, I looked back at those numbers, and with my current partner, we would have made, I think it was over 100,000 at the same sales price. And so the reason for that is like I mentioned, the hard money cost. I think we probably had 40 something thousand in, or maybe it was around 40,000. And then we also would have had I think we would have saved around 40,000 in commissions because my current partner also owns a brokerage and is a broker. So actually we probably would have made like 120, I guess it would be. So again, not necessarily a failure. We made money. So I would still do it again. But now I understand, the true cost of hard money, the true cost of commissions and things like that. When you start getting to $1 million properties, that's just really expensive. And yeah, it really helped me to going forward. Now, when I'm looking at a deal in the $1 million range, I'm going to be thinking a lot more about like, okay, what makes the most sense for everybody involved here? Because, it just doesn't, it's not a win-win for everybody if we make 50 grand, like it would have been better for everybody if I had done this deal with my partner, my current partner now. We all would have made a lot more money, and my old partner wouldn't have had to take that risk for such a small return. So yeah,
Man,
hope that made sense.
sorry to interrupt. My dad always tells me this. He says the mistakes that cost you money are mistakes you don't make twice. And that's most of the time that's pretty true because I've definitely had times where I've lost money doing, certain investment strategies, and it all just goes away. But I mean, you were baptized by fire. I get, doing something like that, and sometimes it does just boil down to who you surround yourself with, and who you have on your team. I think that's probably one of the most important things you can have, because you can have all the knowledge, all the right deals, and sometimes still things don't go the right way if you're not, surrounded by the right people.
Absolutely. I like that quote.
Oh yeah, I love it. And speaking of surrounding yourself by the right people, I love it. Like I love the quote, "Iron sharpens iron," and so I follow you on Instagram, and I see who you surround yourself with, and so can you talk a little bit about the importance of like who you surround yourself with?
Yeah. I mean, I believe, what's that saying? You are the average of the five people closest to you, or,
Yep.
I don't know if I'm butchering it, but the principle behind that little quote or saying thing, I strongly believe in that. And so I definitely try to, now at the same time, I do believe in giving back, and, having been through hard times myself, I look for opportunities to help people, and I do try to connect with people that don't have it so good. But I definitely try to surround myself with people who are at, or above, like really preferably way farther ahead in life than I am, by business and financially. Um, so like an opportunity, I guess I could tell a quick story on that. Is I think a lot of listeners probably know Brandon Turner. You guys probably seen the pictures of me with him on Instagram. Um, so the story about him was that, now, obviously, like, Brandon's like a pretty big influencer, well-known kind of guy, right? So like, I think he gets a lot of people approaching him, and he's a really nice guy. So he'll talk to anybody, right? Like he almost, like, he ends up being friends with like half of the people that probably message him on Instagram, probably. But anyways, I met him. So he moved to Maui. I got word through, the investor community. A buddy told me he was buying a house here, and when for one of the upcoming meetups, Brandon had commented that he was going to be he was going to be attending the meetup. And so I'm generally like active in the meetups. I like to network and everything. That particular meetup, I'm like, I'm there early. I'm like ready, like I'm going to make sure I get a chance to connect with this guy. And so I get there early. I'm so, like, before the meetup, it's all filling in. All these people are showing up. We usually would have like 7 or 8 people at a meetup. That night we had like 37 people. It was crazy. Everybody knew Brandon was coming. Yeah,
Word got
it
out.
was unreal. Like, kept adding tables and tables and tables, and finally, like, we got this half the restaurant. And anyways, so the meetup starts. It's like already 5:30, 5:40, we're getting going. He's not there yet, looking around. The whole room's filled up, and there's 2 seats open, or 3 seats open. So I strategically, like, kept moving, right? And like, as people would come in, I would move and then make sure there was like chairs open next to me. Right.
Right.
And so at the end,
Smart. That's
when
smart.
Brandon gets there with Ryan Murdoch, his one of his friends and employees, and a friend of mine now too. So they get there, and the only two seats in the house are on my right side and my left side. So when they walk up and they're like looking around, I'm like, "Oh, guys, look! Hey, there happens
Yeah,
to be a chair
it
right
just
here."
happens to be. That's funny.
So then they sit next to me, and I just basically took them hostage, and um, yeah, I don't recommend that, but for me, I knew that from listening to his show, he was really into the surfing, and had wanted to really excited about learning how to surf. So kind of used that as an opportunity to build some rapport, and it's like, hey, I surf every day, and ultimately, I think I started that relationship by saying, we talked about, investing through the night, and I told him some of the stuff we do on him here on Maui. And I told him, at the end, I said, hey, I know you're really interested in surfing and getting better and learning surfing and stuff. And I've been surfing my whole, most of my life. And I was actually an instructor in college for like 5 years. And so I can get you out there and really help you on the surfing aspect. So if we can talk real estate, I'm happy to kind of mentor you and take you out surfing. And so that's how I started that relationship.
So,
And Brandon is a friend of mine now, but he's also just he's a super nice guy, super cool guy, but he's also like, he just adds so much value besides being a friend. It really grateful for his friendship and relationship.
yeah. And so let me ask you, whenever you first met Brandon Turner and you were setting that up, were you a little nervous or were you confident when you were doing that when you first met him?
Oh, I was I was wetting my pants. I was
So that's
super
yeah.
nervous.
The reason I ask that is because my gold nugget right here is you surrounded yourself with a very high valuable person, and there's people out there that they kind of see that connection and they see someone that they can go talk to, but they're super nervous, but they're not taking the action. But you took the action, and look at where you're at now. You surrounded yourself. You said the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with is who you're going to be. And so you said, I see Brandon Turner, who's an influencer, so I'm gonna go talk to him. And so, like, if you're out there listening to this podcast, I'm talking to you. Like, go talk to that person. And that's what Greg did. He went and talked to that person who was an influencer, and now he's seeing some pretty good success. I mean, iron sharpens iron. So go find someone out there who's succeeding and try to just, I mean, go from there. Iron sharpens iron. I love it. I mean,
Yeah, and Brandon and I actually did some flips together. We had some actually the best flip I've ever done was with Brandon. So that was awesome. He gave me all this authenticity, or what's the word I'm looking for? He made me, he made it seem like I really know what I'm doing, right? He made me seem like the guy for Maui. And in reality, I mean, when we started doing flips, I had maybe 2 years, of buying some cheap low end rentals. I mean, I'm still a newbie, right? Like I've only been investing for four years, I think now, something like that. So, but yeah, he really made me look like I know what I'm doing, and as a result, has opened up the doors for a lot of other relationships. And while we're not actively doing any deals together right now, I mean, we might again one day. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But like I said, he's still a friend. And I've made so many great friends as a result of being friends with him. Actually, funny, Josh Dorkin from Bigger Pockets he's texting me right now about going surfing while we're on the podcast here.
Nice.
And that's a result of being, getting in with Brandon, becoming friends with Brandon. And eventually one day Josh is here visiting, and we all go surfing together. And now Josh has moved here too. So yeah, now he's a friend of mine. And now Josh has introduced me to another buddy of his who's just moved here, who's a big developer and investor from the East Coast. And man, the guy is just so much knowledge. So actually a quick nugget I'll throw in on his regarding this guy. His name's Slava, and shout out to Slava. He's super cool guy. And yeah, really smart. I like him a lot. And so Josh introduced me, kind of put in a group text. Hey, Greg, here my buddy Slava is moving to Maui. He's looking for a place in this Maui Meadows, this little area. And do you got any leads? So I didn't know who Slava was. I didn't know anything about him, but obviously, like if Josh is introducing me, you kind of get the hint, like he's probably a good guy to know. And so right off the bat, I went ahead and shared all of the leads that I had for that area. Now I spent money and time and work invested to get those leads, but at the same time, none of them were really looking like they were going to convert. Like they were wanting a little more, it wasn't looking like it was going to work, but they were good prices. They just weren't good enough prices to flip, especially with my risk adverse nature. So yeah, I just went ahead and shared those leads. I just sent them all the phone numbers and all my notes. I actually took a screenshot of my CRM for each one, so he could see exactly what conversations I had with these people. It was like, hey, just go ahead and call them up and see what happens, and see if you can get one of them. And none of them have worked out yet, but yeah, I think that was just, I figure, hey, like, let me add some value. Let me do what I can to help people. And I've found that that's really come back around in the long run. So I try and help people.
Yeah. And so that's the next gold nugget is you keep talking about how great they are, but I want to talk about you too, Greg. Like they're not pouring into you because you're somebody that just wants information. You're adding value to them. You're showing them the hustle, because somebody like Josh Dorkins and Brandon Turner, they're not going to pour into somebody that's lazy. And so like, if you're going to go surround yourself with iron, like iron sharpens iron, well, you got to be iron too. So like, what are you doing to hustle? And so like I commend you on that too, Greg. Like those high level people want to work with you because you're working really good and you're a hustler. And so like I commend you on that too. Like you're talking about how high level they are. Well, you're high level too because they want to work with you.
Yeah. And that's kind of my whole thing is let me add value. Let me help people as much as possible. And not just because we're talking about guys, the guys that I've mentioned now are guys that are successful and have done pretty well, but I try and do that with everybody, because it always just seems to come back around somehow. So like if a seller calls me and I'm not the right fit, I typically, or pretty much never, will try to convince them to sell to me, unless I really believe. Like sometimes they think like, oh, I got to go with a realtor because your offer's too low or whatever it is. And there's times when I got to convince them like, hey, listen, I have to help you because you try and list this thing, you're never going to sell, you're going to get foreclosed. And, but generally I would say the majority of sellers that call me, I'm like, you will get more money if you list it, especially today. So I'll make you an offer, but you shouldn't take it. And I think people appreciate that. And yeah, it's crazy, but I don't want to try to convince anybody they should sell to me. I want to just help people. And my philosophy is that by helping as many people as I can, those people, when they know somebody or have a property or whatever the situation comes up where I am the right fit, they're going to refer me, they're going to call me, and I'm probably going to get a lot more deals and referrals out of that person over a lifetime.
Absolutely.
It'd be a lot more valuable than just one flip that probably I'm going to end up overpaying because they want market value anyways. So
right.
So there's a gold nugget. You're not seeking the highest dollar amount. You're seeking a win-win. And that's going to, in the long run, get you more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, I think we're
Yeah.
getting close to the end of this podcast. We're kind of getting close to the end, but man, is there any final like gold nuggets like I'd mentioned I'd mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, like my aim is to drop gold nuggets that people can go home and implement today. Like goal setting, like I focus on 5 years, 1 year, and I break that down into daily goals. Like that's my gold nugget on goal setting. Do you have any more gold nuggets that a listener can go home and implement today? Like I'm not talking about the business knowledge, like the core principle, like what's something they can go implement to help them in the business knowledge area?
Okay, I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking for, but since you're talking about goal setting and everything, I'm not super organized on this. Like I think I'm kind of the creative mind, so I'm not organized with anything really. But what I try to do for my goal setting, what I do consistently is writing down my goals, and I try and follow like kind of, I think it's the Tony Robbins mindset of describing clearly what your goal is, what it looks like, what it feels like if you don't accomplish it, all those things. And I I write those down, quarterly or whatever it is, like write down my, big list of goals. But every morning when I do my little morning routine, I write down my short-term goals and like, what do I have to do right now to get to those goals? And so I'm a pretty big believer in putting pen to paper, and like just something happens when you write stuff down. So, in fact, I'll share one more quick story on that. When I had first started met Brandon and was starting to become friends, and I mentioned Ryan Murdoch, a good friend of Brandon's, a good friend of mine now, had come with me to a seller meeting one day. I didn't realize this at the time, but that was like actually kind of, I think, my job interview to be able to do flips with Brandon. But yeah, I was just like, hey, you want to join me on this? And he was like, yeah, sure, sounds fun, let's go. And at the time I had a piece of paper on my dashboard with a note that I wrote that said, I make $300,000 a year and I love what I do, or something along those lines. Right. And at that time, like I was making decent money. I mean, I was making six figures maybe, but like nothing like close to 300,000. And I couldn't even fathom like how I would ever be able to make that kind of money. Right. Like that was so, it's like, to me right now today, making $20 million a year is just, I can't even imagine it. Like it's so far out of my world. So that's how that felt at that time. And that was just in 2019, I think, or maybe it was 2018, but yeah, it was 2019. And the next year I made more than that. Okay. So like, and not to brag or like, try and talk about whatever, I'm always interested in numbers. So when I listen to people on podcasts, I'm always kind of curious, like what do you actually net from doing all that work and doing those kind of deals and stuff? And so in that case, I'm a big believer in writing that down. Somehow the universe has a way of making things happen. It was on my dashboard, on my instrument cluster. So I saw it every single day. Even if it didn't register, I didn't actually read it every day, but my reticular activating system, is that what it's called? Again, Tony Robbins thing. It was there. My brain was seeing it and it was reminding myself like, okay, I got to do what I got to do to make this happen. Cause that's what I want. And that's what my life's going to be. And it happens. And the same thing had happened a couple of years before, and I was making 40 grand a year or something. And I had a little Post-it note on my laptop or my computer screen that said I make $150,000 a year. And I was just like, there's no way I'll ever make $150,000 a year.
And that's what excites me. That's what excites me. Like hearing that, like at the time that you wrote the goal, you were struggling to believe it, correct? When you wrote the goal, but you still wrote it.
Oh yeah. I'm not, I wouldn't say struggling to believe it. I knew like, there's no way this is ever going to happen. Like I would have bet everything that there's just no possible way. I couldn't even fathom it. but I think, I don't know. I don't know how it works or why it works, but I do believe it works. I've seen it time and time again. And, like I said, I was in 2015, I was making $38,000 a year. That was my income. I mean, and that was really good. I was stoked to be making $38,000 a year because I had been homeless like just a few years before that. Yeah, so I mean, right now I can't even imagine living on that. It's like such a small amount, and I don't know. It just it's crazy to think about how things change when you put your intentions out into the universe, again, writing it down and then taking the action. Like for me in the beginning, it was every night, like we talked about before the show, nights and weekends. I had a day job, I had to work. So I would go after work to my condo, my first couple deals, and sit there and do, help with the cleaning and renovations till 9-10 o'clock at night, and all day on the weekends. And that's just what I had to do to get started.
Man,
Didn't last forever though, so glad I did it.
That's awesome. I mean, just writing things down. The last few podcasts I've had, that's the number one thing that's been consistent. Write it down. Like the guy in the last podcast mentioned, or 2 podcasts ago mentioned Project 369. Like, listen to this. Project 369, you write down your annual goal 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the evening, and 9 times at night. That's a commitment.
Wow.
But I mean, there's a science behind it. There's even in the Bible on Habakkuk 2:2, it talks about write the vision down. Like, you look in every area of life, it talks about like the power of writing it down. And so if you see it in the Bible, you see it in science, you see it with Tony Robbins. Like, if you're not writing down your goal, now I don't know what else to tell you. Like, go home and write it. Like, there's power behind writing.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
And Greg, do you want to tell the listeners where they can learn more about you or find you?
Yeah, probably the best way. I'm not super active on social media, but I'm really trying to recommit. But I would say, yeah, Instagram is a great way to just kind of learn a little more about what we're doing out here and see what we're up to. And Instagram, so I have 2. I have at Maui Home Buyers, and then my personal Instagram is at investor.greg, Greg. Or if you want to reach out to me, you can shoot me an email. My email is greg at Maui Home Buyers with a S at the end.com.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate you giving us some insight to you and a little bit of knowledge from what you've gained over the years.
Absolutely. I appreciate being on the show.